So, spoiler season is in full swing now, and if you haven't seen my most recent episode on Miracle, and my apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, Lord of Bones, make sure you check that one out at some point, because that commander had me saying, wait, this does what? But don't leave just yet, because on this episode, I'm going to be talking about backgrounds, and I'm going to be talking about what in the world backgrounds are. It's a brand new thing from this set. So, to find out what backgrounds are, well, let's jump into it. Now, to start things off, I'm going to be talking about a very strange card with Faceless One. So, Faceless One is a 3/3 for 5 mana, and it's a legendary enchantment creature background. So, this is kind of a strange card, and to be honest, really quick, this one was basically just made for draft. I assume at least it was just made for draft because this can help with building a commander deck in the drafting process. Basically, this is the prismatic piper of the set. Regardless, for this explanation, let's just pretend that it does not have the subtype background, just to make this a bit easier, okay? It says, if Faceless One is your commander, choose a color before the game begins. Faceless One is the chosen color. And then it also says, choose a background. You can have a background as a second commander. So background itself is very much like partner. Commanders that have choose a background on them aren't in the command zone alone, and you can, pick whatever background that you want, and it appears that there's going to be quite a few to pick from. And like having a partner commander, that does adjust your color identity. Or at least I should say it can. Obviously if you pick, a commander and a background that have the exact same color identity, you don't add anything. But yeah, most players out there are going to choose a background most likely that is different than their commander's color identity. So this gives you access to another color, and also these backgrounds are going to have different and interesting effects. So for all intents and purposes, just consider your background as basically a second commander, kind of like Faceless One says, in its reminder text. And again, Faceless One itself is a background that you could choose, but probably won't choose, because it's a 3/3 for 5 mana that just lets you, pick whatever color you want, essentially. So yeah, most likely, most players aren't going to pick this as their background, outside of draft. Regardless, the reason that I decided to show Faceless One as, my example for a commander that has choose a background is because it's kind of like a blank slate. It doesn't really have any effects, essentially. Whereas other commanders are definitely going to lean towards certain backgrounds. If you really decide to build around Faceless One as even your commander, have fun picking a background for it that's, pretty wide open in what you can do. But now with all that said, and hopefully you understand how to actually choose a background, let's talk about the backgrounds that you can choose from. Well, okay, at least the ones that have been spoiled so far, and I'm sure there are going to be plenty more. So first up, let's talk about Shameless Charlatan, a legendary enchantment background that costs 1 in blue. So again, I want to point this out really quickly. I believe that these backgrounds are all the exact same type. Again, legendary enchantment background, except for probably Faceless One, which my guess is it's the only actual creature. And again, that is pretty much entirely for draft, I assume. So backgrounds are going to be legendary enchantments, and with that said, here we go. Commander creatures you own have paid 2 in blue. This creature becomes a copy of another target creature. So this is a really interesting ability to actually give to your commander, and I'm sure there are going to be certain, commanders in this set that have to choose a background. They're going to want this more than others and can do some pretty powerful things with it. I mean, just as an example, maybe you've got a commander that's got some form of evasion or it's unblockable, and yeah, you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to be able to get through on an opponent. Perhaps you utilize this to attack with your commander, then make your commander a copy of another more powerful creature once it gets through in combat. Obviously, that can be a great way to dish out, damage if you've got a massive creature that you can copy. And again, that can be an opponent's creature as well. Or, maybe you've got, say, Phage the Untouchable in play. And then that player is just gone because you got it through. On the other hand, of course, you might just even have a build where you're like, hey, I just really want a lot of copies of certain creatures because I've got some very powerful creatures in this deck. So sure, I'll take an extra copy of that by making my commander into that. So there's some really spicy things that you can do this background, and yeah, I'm excited to see what commanders can pair really well with it. And also, actually, before I jump into other backgrounds, keep in mind you can actually just, play this in your deck. You don't need to have a commander that has choose a background to utilize this card. You can just utilize it in the 99 of, any deck that has access to blue. And also keep in mind with it being legendary, there are certain commanders that really care about legendary permanents. So yeah, make sure you keep that in mind. Maybe you've got a Sisay deck that might want to tutor this out for whatever reason. Regardless, let's move on to yet another background with Guild Artisan, and thank you to MTG Goldfish for the translated version of this card. It again is a legendary enchantment background that costs 1 and a red, and it says, commander creatures you own have, whenever this creature attacks a player, if no other opponent has more life than that player, create 2 treasure tokens. So kind of like Dethrone in a way where you're incentivized to actually attack the player, or should I say the opponent, that has the most life. And for just 2 mana, this can provide you an absurd amount of value. If you've got an aggressive commander that can utilize this as their background, just get this into play and just start swinging at, that opponent that's got the most life. Treasures, again, might be temporary ramp, but still, they are incredibly impactful, and, in certain decks, you can use and abuse them in different ways as well. Regardless, they can help you quickly get ahead of your opponents, especially with an aggressive strategy, and yeah, maybe you even have some ways to get extra combat so you can swing even more to get even more treasure tokens. Or you've got ways to get even more treasure tokens out of this, maybe with something like Zorn, or you got ways to double up those tokens, or maybe I'm sure you even have ways to, go infinite with this with, some kind of extra combat kind of shenanigans. And again, like I mentioned before, even outside of this being a background, maybe, a commander like Rograk could really utilize this just as a card in the 99, because Rograk can be very aggressive, so get this down early and start just pumping out a ton of treasure tokens. But yeah, another low to the ground, very interesting background. One that's definitely not low to the ground, though, is Raised by Giants, and with a name like that, it probably shouldn't be, and it's a legendary enchantment background that costs 5 and a green, and it says, commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to their other types. Now, one thing that I probably should have pointed out earlier, but do keep in mind, it does say commander creatures you own, not control, own. And I believe all these backgrounds follow that same template. So essentially, if you steal an opponent's commander, you're not getting, this benefit or any of these benefits. And if your opponents say, steal your commander, it still gets that benefit. Regardless, Raised by Giants can make your commander absolutely massive and into a giant for, flavor, I'm sure. And I'm sure actually, outside of flavor, there are cards that do care about you having a giant or not or whatnot. Regardless, making your commander into a 10/10 is huge. I mean, let's just say that one of the commanders out there that is coming out in this set has choose a background and they've got double strike. That means that commander is nearly, not quite, nearly a one-shot KO. Again, that's going to be 20 damage from your commander with that 10/10 and then being double striking damage. And of course, if you just pump them ever so slightly, that is one shot. Regardless, this just by itself turns your commander, no matter what it is, into a 3-shot KO, and very easily, again, just by pumping it ever so slightly, it can be a 2-shot KO. Also, do keep in mind that it is the base power and toughness being adjusted. So if you've got a commander that cares about getting +1/+1 counters on it or something like that, that's added on top of this. So yeah, if you want your commander to hit incredibly hard and they've got choose a background, Raised by Giants can be a great one to choose. Moving on though, maybe you want your commander to have a criminal past instead, so you pick Criminal Past. It costs 2 and a black, and it says, commander creatures you own have menace, and this creature gets +X/+0, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Once you're set up correctly, this can help your commander hit even harder than Raised by Giants, and it can help get your commander through as well. Now, obviously, there's a trade-off with that, in that if someone exiles your graveyard, well, it's back down to 0. But still, if you are in a self-mill strategy with this as your background and you're able to get a ton of creatures into your graveyard, your commander can very easily become a 2 or even 1-shot KO that, again, can be hard to block because of that menace. And of course, if you pair, your commander with some other form of evasion as well, like maybe flying, it can be even more difficult to actually block that creature. And of course, there are some ways to even make that creature unblockable if you've got, say, an equipment, I believe like Vorak Battlehorns, I think that's the name of it, that basically says, hey, the equipped creature can't be blocked by more than one creature, so essentially nothing can block it then. Regardless, yeah, I definitely can see this working very well with a commander that has choose a background and really wants to mill itself for a ton. Or again, if you just want to utilize this in the 99 of a deck and you've got a commander that cares about maybe, self-mill and power, that can definitely utilize this as well. Next up, though, let's move on to Scion of Hallister, a legendary enchantment background that costs 1 and a black. It says, commander creatures you own have the first time you would draw a card each turn. Instead, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your graveyard and the other back on top of your library, then draw a card. So again, with these backgrounds, this is kind of just like additional stapled on text onto your commander when these are in play. And instead of this one, like, pumping your commander or giving your commander, ability it can actually utilize, this one's more so like, hey, you're just getting a lot of extra value from your commander just being in play. In a way, this is kind of like Surveil, which can really help you with card selection and also getting cards into your graveyard, which, again, like I mentioned, with other things, obviously, that can be very impactful. One of the 2 cards on the top of your library might be a dead card, so yeah, just ditch that card and get in your graveyard. Or maybe it's something that, has flashback or actually wants to be in your graveyard. Cool, put it there and take the other card. So this is an achievement that you can get down early, and it can give you a lot of value throughout the game. And if you've got a commander that maybe is hard to actually take out, maybe say, it has indestructible or a hexproof, though I don't know if they're actually going to make, a background commander with hexproof. We'll see. Or, even something like Ward, obviously, that can be very impactful and help that commander stay in play longer to give you more and more value with this. And speaking of Ward, let's cover the final background that I'm going to tackle in this episode with Cultist of the Absolute. It's a legendary enchantment background for just a black mana that says, commander creatures you own get +3/+3 and have flying, death touch, ward, pay 3 life, and at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So this 1 mana background does a ton for you. It pumps your creature a lot. Again, +3/+3, flying, and death touch. That's a lot. And again, make sure you pair, death touch with maybe a commander that maybe has trample, so you can get a ton of damage through, or first strike, so it's really hard to take that creature out in combat. So your commander hits even harder, is incredibly deadly, and it can get through in combat on a lot of opponents. And also, those players, if they do actually want to target it, have to pay 3 life to do so. Now, of course, there is a downside, or at least I should say a potential downside, with at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. Now, I do say potential downside because, yeah, there are plenty of ways to take advantage of that and actually get a lot of value out of that. I mean, even just think about something like, Reef Worm or Mitotic Slime that actually care about you, getting rid of them so you can get even more tokens. So you could definitely utilize this in an aristocrat style strategy where you utilize your commander for value and, actually hit harder with it, on top of gaining value for those creatures that you are forced to sacrifice. So I can definitely see this background being a popular one for players that are looking to build in that direction. And again, for just 1 mana, this provides you an absurd effect. But now this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to wrap things up and get your thoughts on backgrounds. So what do you think about the background concept? Do you like it? Do you not like it? How do you like it in comparison to partner? Which of these is your favorite? Which is your least favorite? Which one do you want to build around? Which one do you want in the 99? All the questions, answer them all in the comments below. Thank you so much. And of course, make sure on the lookout for even more quick takes on this exciting spoiler season for Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. There's going to be a lot more exciting cards coming out. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.